Hey, hey, everyone. Woo, woo. Welcome to our Landlord Series webinar tonight. So I want to welcome everybody who's coming and jumping on. And I have a question for everybody who's on. First question, actually. I am curious as to who was on the Landlord Lessons in March. This is something that we run every quarter. So we ran our last one here in March. And I'm curious if anybody, if you're listening, who was here back in March? Let's see if there's anybody that is stalking us. I love it. All right, we got a few people here. And while you're at it, guys, we got Deepti Walia was here. We got Travis Hunter's a newbie. Welcome, Travis. Lena was here. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, everyone. So I just want to welcome those of you who were here, those of you who are new. Buckle up because it's going to be a great conversation. We've actually changed up the format a little bit for this one, so you're going to love this one. It's going to be amazing. Can somebody reply to Jeng that he can't hear anything? So maybe just tell him to leave and come back. Yeah, we want to make sure everybody can see it. Yeah, so we're going to do a fireside chat. And you guys are actually going to lead the conversation. What we're going to do is we're going to start with introducing everybody. And then afterwards, we're just going to start firing some questions so that you guys get what you're looking for. Okay. First off, though, where are you guys coming in from? I do want to know, where's everybody coming in from? So I'm in Milton, Ontario. I know Corey's in Sarnia. Kayla is in or near Kitchener, according to speedtest.net. Josh, where are you at?
The east end of Toronto.
Oh, you're on the other side of the city.
Yeah.
Man,
I love it here.
You, Hart? You're right in the heart of it.
No, I'm technically the west end, so Josh and I can fight over the two sides of Toronto.
I love it. I love it. It's a great rivalry. Awesome. So where's everybody from? Let's see. We've got Brampton, Toronto, Grimsby, Whitby, lots of Ontario. Where's Fenelon Falls? Oh, I think I asked that on the last one. We got Mississauga, Guelph, Ottawa, South River, Shelburne, Montreal's in the house. Woo, woo. Scarborough, Cambridge, Caledon. Anybody from far, like outside of Ontario? Because I know we had a lot of people outside of Ontario last time. Holland Landing. I have no idea where that is, Nancy. We got Oshawa, East Scarborough Rouge, Vaughan. All right, the Muhammad Allen. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We're gonna get this started. I'm gonna throw up some slides here. And here we go. So today's topic is how I built a business and not just a rental. And it's really important, guys, when a lot of people get into this and they start by doing a side hustle and buying one investment property and then maybe get the itch and then do another and then do another. And before you know it, it's eating up a lot of your time and how you're going to manage everything. So I want to congratulate everybody for being here, for recognizing that education is what is going to transfer you from being an average investor to a sophisticated investor. This is where it happens, guys, is in rooms like this with conversations like this. You're taking the time to make this happen, which is more than the average person. And so if you invest in yourself, you will see a return on that investment. And honestly, guys, we tell this to our students all the time, Corey and I, it is not hard. The bar is very low to rise above the crowd. Okay, guys? So you're doing the right thing by being here. All right, so to get the most out of tonight's presentation, make sure you're engaged, take some notes, write down those little pieces of nuggets, guys, because if you write it down, you're going to retain it better. And then the big thing is you want to go and implement it, okay? That's where you're going to see the results. So be present, be grounded. Don't be afraid to be social and comment in the chat and participate in the conversation. And again, you got to go out there and do it, because education without implementation is just knowledge. All right. So if you want a good return on your investment for your time here, guys, take some notes and make sure you have a to-do list of 2 or 3 things you're going to change tomorrow. All right. Before we go any deeper, though, we do have a couple of disclaimers. We always need to do this. This is our opinion only based on our knowledge and our experience. But if you make any decisions, any business decisions, anything moving forward, we highly, highly, highly encourage you to seek your legal and professional team in order to get the proper advice that is suited to you, okay? We're not lawyers, we're not accountants, we're not appraisals, financial advisors, and anything like that. So make sure you consult with your own professional team before you make any major decision. We're also recording this and it's live, so we may be popping up some questions. You've already seen in the stream some pops up. So if you want to be kept anonymous, guys, you might want to not participate in the chat because there's always that risk that we will pop you in there, okay? And I might even call on you guys, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so what we're gonna cover, everything about business, okay? All about creating the framework around a business when it comes to real estate investing so that you can stop losing your mind and work more efficiently. Now, having said that, without the framework of the business, without changing your mindset about working a business, it is very, very difficult to scale. So if you have 1 or 2 properties and you want to scale into 4, 5, 6, 7 properties, you definitely want to take a lot of notes tonight, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about the pitfalls of winging it and without having any systems or any tools. We're going to share some platforms, some companies that we use, that we leverage. We're all about leveraging, not just money, but tools as well. And how can you grow stress-free while protecting your assets? Guys, it's really important to note that if you don't have systems in place and you don't have processes to follow, you are putting your assets at risk, okay? Right from tenant management, tenant placement, to underwriting a property, okay? You are at risk of losing in the end. So you want to make sure that you have that. And just for coming tonight, we've got 3 great assets for you guys that we're going to share, and you're not going to want to miss them. One is from Josh. You're going to get to know who Josh is here in a minute. But he's got small landlord package that you're not going to want to miss. We've got a privacy policy for you guys. You definitely need that, as well as the top 15 tools that you're going to want to use as you're scaling and growing and becoming more organized. Who doesn't like to be more organized, right? So that's awesome. All right. Woo, I'm just looking in the chat here. We got Saskatchewan, Balcarres, Saskatchewan, Fort McMurray, couple people in Fort McMurray. We got, yeah, I love that, guys. We are all over. All right. So before we get started, last thing, and then we're going to do our speaker intros here. I want to let you guys know we have an amazing WhatsApp community. And if you guys want to jump into that community, the people that are on stage are in that community, myself and Corey as well. And it's just such a great resource to exchange ideas, ask for, resources and any kind of help that you need. So it's help, it's conversation, it's all kinds of fun stuff. What's in the news, economic stuff. So if you want to jump into the WhatsApp group and be part of the conversation, make sure you scan this code. I'm going to show it a little bit later in the presentation as well. Scan this QR code and then just be part of the conversation. All right, so we're gonna get Kayla up here. Kayla is a Front Lobby ambassador and representing Front Lobby here tonight, but she's also the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch. And if you haven't heard this girl talk, let me tell you, you have missed out. Not only is it informational, but it's very entertaining because her passion is something else. It's very what's the word? I can't remember the word. When yeah, contagious. Yes, I was thinking, what was COVID? What was that word for COVID?
Oh, we're playing charades for a minute here.
I was waiting for it. I was like, where is she going with this?
Contagious, very contagious. So she's an advocate for landlords, and boy, let me tell you something. She's always working hard for landlords and making sure that bad policies get overturned, and definitely is somebody you want to connect with and check out her group online on Facebook. So that is Kayla. Do you want to just share a few words about who you are, what you do, and then I'll move on to the next one in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, I'm just a landlord advocate for obviously our good landlords, even our good tenants and our taxpayers. Always wanting to be the person that's out there educating you on what's going on in the housing industry on a political front, but most importantly, bringing that brand awareness to what Front Lobby does with rent reporting, debt reporting, and credit checks, because it is a vital part of my advocacy work, and that's why I became the ambassador.
I love that. Love that. Boom. Okay, next up we got Hart Togman from Rent Panda. And so Hart used to be in marketing, and he used to work with really big names like GM, Del Monte, Tropicana, even the government of Canada. And he ended up leaving that to create Rent Panda, which is solely dedicated as a service for landlords. And there was a bit of an evolution with Rent Panda. And they, you evolved from an app. I think it was software, right? And then you went into leasing because landlords need a ton of help here leasing and placing tenants. And now they're totally in the property management space and doing over 400 units. And he's got a team of 20s, an amazing process. I personally use Rent Panda. And again, Hart, welcome to the call here. Do you want to share 30 seconds or less a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So other than Red Panda, I mean, I'm a dad. I'm a mountain climber. I like to do hard things. And being a landlord is hard. Being a property manager is hard. So it all kind of comes together. We manage properties all across Ontario. We're actually up to about 800 units now. And Corey, I was in your hood yesterday onboarding some Sarnia properties. But yeah, we help small landlords, and we really have a vision that everyone can be a landlord. A little different than everyone should be a landlord, but everyone can be a landlord. It's just about providing them the right products and services along that journey. And that's what we're here to do, really help that small landlord journey and make sure that you can get good ROI coming out of your investment.
Love that. Thank you, Hart. And then up next here, we got my business partner, Corey McKinnon. So Corey has been a coach for a real estate coach now for the better part of a decade. And prior to that, there was 2 decades that you were coaching in the corporate world, right, Corey? He's been 20 years doing real estate, graduated out of the corporate world and retired, having built a portfolio, 8-figure portfolio by the age of 36, and then celebrated. Woo, woo. Who doesn't want to do that? And yeah, and so now he and I have partnered together in order, instead of doing one-to-one coaching, we want to do one-to-many and help the masses out there because people are struggling. Landlording is not easy. Corey, do you want to give a 30-second brief on your background?
Yeah, landlording is not easy. Buying properties isn't easy. Running businesses isn't easy. Just like Hart said, like you got to get used to doing hard things. So yeah, once I left corporate, that was what I did, right? I broke more complicated things down into easier to take action type steps and been implementing that into real estate now since 2013. So excited to join forces here at Strategic Success and impact as many real estate investors and business owners as we can.
Love that. And then last on the stage here, we got Josh Lipton. So he's the VP of operations for RentSync. He is, he is all in when it comes to landlording. He has led key initiatives for support sales and marketing since 2016. He's built data-driven tools. Like, you need to know this stuff in order to fill vacancies, because that's where people really struggle. And if you don't have these data-driven tools, then you're just putting anybody in your vacancy in order to fill it, and that's just doing it all wrong, guys. He is really looking at practical-based solutions in order to help landlords, and that's all based on real-world experiences. Josh, welcome to the call. And do you want to share 30 seconds or less?
I mean, what can I say that you didn't already? No, I'm kidding. I'm also personally a landlord, and can attest that it's tough, but it's also very gratifying. And I'm looking to also build my portfolio, and I think doing it every day, hands-on, helps make me a better landlord and understand the concerns that I've had other landlords, and it just has made me better help our customers at RentSync address their concerns. So really excited about just solving landlord issues on a day-to-day basis and continually getting better.
Love it. Thank you for that. And then, guys, there's me. So some of you know me, some of you may not. If you're here for the first time, I'm Corey McKinnon's partner, founder and visionary for strategic success, and been a landlord since 2003. And I guess I'm on 22 years now, and I know how hard it can be. And I know what it's like when you're trying to run it alone without systems. And guys, I can tell you right now, that is not the way to do it. So my own personal background, I started with buy and holds, thought I figured it all out. And then I moved into actually learning and invested in myself and educating. And then I realized there was a whole world out there that I had no idea on. And that's when I went from an average investor to a sophisticated investor. And here we are now. So I am co-hosting this with Front Lobby. So I just want to give a shout out to Katie here, who was organizing this with me along the way. And I just want to give you a shout out to Katie. So thank you for all your help. All right, guys. So with that being said, we're going to pull up all of our panelists onto the panel, and then we're going to get started. So, wow, Moses is already in there. Moses, landlord, already has a question. I don't even know if I'm going to go to my questions. You guys are already there. Usually, you know, I warm you guys up, but what do we got here? All right, so we'll get to that. That's a mortgage question. We're going to get into that after in a little bit. Let's talk about, guys, I will say this to everybody in the audience. I want to hit everybody's question. I probably will not. So I will be cherry picking the questions that is related to building a business around landlording. So that is our theme for tonight. I will say we do have a survey at the end. It's a 3-question survey. And we're going to ask on that survey, if you want specific topics, fill out that survey and let us know what topics you want to hear about, because our subsequent Landlord Lesson series is going to be driven by you guys. So whatever you guys give us feedback on is what we're going to share. So having said that, first question I'm going to throw out to the panel here is, you know, you get a property and then you get a second one, but at what point did you realize that you needed to start building in systems and run your rental portfolio like a business? Like, at what point did you realize you had a rental portfolio, or rather a business instead of a rental portfolio? Hart, you want to crack that one first?
Sure. My story is a little bit different because as I became a landlord, I also became an owner of a property management company, essentially. But ultimately, two was really where my mentality shifted. So one rental property, like many others, I was house hacking. So I bought my primary, rented out the basement, had some less than ideal experiences, which we talked about on the last landlord lesson talk. And when I got to 2, I realized I needed the systems that we had also built for the property management company. And ironically, as a property manager with 400, 500, 600 units, I thought those systems probably weren't applicable to me running 2 rental properties. And I started to fall down the trap of being too emotional, trying to do it all myself, just thinking, oh, this is my portfolio, I'm going to run it differently. And so very quickly at 2 properties, I realized I needed to use the systems that we had built for 600 units, for 800 units. We've built our systems for 10,000 units. So whether you have 2 or 10,000, standard operating procedures, having checklists to follow, all the basics of running a business were there at 2.
I think Danielle's on mute, but I'll jump in the meantime, and I'll say that, I only have one, but I think you should be starting from one. If you are thinking about turning this into a business, you need to start thinking about processes from the very beginning, because once you start, it's really tough to kind of bring that in down the line. I think I've heard some horror stories of just people who they start with one, it goes okay, they go 2, and they just keep going, and before you know it, suddenly they have a house of cards, and it's just falling apart before their eyes, and it's taking way too much time. It's not business now, it's a headache for them. They're stressed. Again, a lot of my day is talking to landlords and seeing how we can make their lives easier. And so I really do think it's important to start from day one. If that is your goal. Again, there are people who have this just as a kind of a side hustle, but everyone here clearly has the intention of growing this into a business and something more. So I think you should already be thinking about that today, putting in the right process from day one and getting the ball started. So that's my 2 cents. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a complete vision on every single process as well, but you have to start with an intention, and you start somewhere and you will improve your processes and add more as you go and as you learn. But I do think from day one, you kind of have to have an idea of what your goal is and how things are going compared to the benchmarks you've set. So I think that's a really important thing, to start from the beginning with a benchmark. Yeah, and with processes.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's, to your point, Josh, a lot of people try to overcomplicate things, or they think, when they need a system, they need it to be big and they need it to be already built. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just start with one thing and implement it to make your life easier the next time you do it, or the next time around, right? I want to give a shout out to everybody. Thank you for letting me know I was muted. That's very embarrassing. That's a rookie mistake. Shame on me. That will not happen again for the rest of this webinar. So I apologize for that. In case you were wondering, what I was saying with Hart, when he said that he realized that 2 properties, I think Hart had the insight to catch it before most people. Most people, there are a few properties in deeper before they realize they need to build out some systems and processes. And if you have to ask yourself, guys, this is what we always tell our students at Strategic. If you have to ask yourself, should I start building a system around this? It's already too late. You should have already done it. So if you ask yourself that question, it's too late. Okay. So really important. And it's just really going to streamline things and make your life easier when you become a little bit more organized. All right, Kayla, when did you notice that you needed to start building systems?
I thought you were going to, when I noticed you were on mute, and I'm like, I cannot make sure I don't do that right now. So I'm like, I'm sweating for you. I'm sweating for you.
At least it was me and not you guys. See, now you guys have been put on notice. So I took one for the team. Yeah.
Well, so what happens when we want to make sure the audio is absolutely perfect, that we want to make sure we're off mute and making sure that you hear every speaker that's on here, because everyone's going to bring something to the punch tonight. And I was excited to talk about this because, being a landlord for 23 years and understanding when I went through a process where you're buying these rental properties and you buy them with that process of wanting to make money. And when you think about making money off your properties, what happens when you don't make money? And that was my rude awakening when I just had that one tenant in 23 years that didn't pay rent. And I didn't know what to do, how to do it. And we went through a process of well, what do I do? How do I report this tenant? Could I reminded this tenant, what would happen? So that's when it was the business aspect of, including that rent reporting for me was a key into being that professional landlord and understanding that everyone's going to go through their ups and their downs. And you want to give them as much of the benefit of the doubt and the assistance that you can give them. But we have to understand that we are running a business and you have to be proactive with giving them proper forms, whatever province you're in, when you are dealing with someone that doesn't pay rent or doesn't pay rent on time. So I know a lot of us get caught. I get a lot of landlords calling me and they're like, hey, I just believed them based on their banking information, or they went through a divorce, or they went through. We get that. But at the same time, we have to understand that in order to scale, you need to be able to protect the current supply that you have. And you have to make sure that you're using these tools that are available to help you mitigate the process of a tenant not wanting to pay you or wanting to take advantage of you. So always go with your brains, think smart to a situation when you're screening your tenants, because that's going to take you a lot further down the road than having to come up with a problem and spend hours investigating and learning and educating and paying a lot of money to get help from a legal representation. So being a part of a group is definitely key into helping you scale your business.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You have a lot of experience, Kayla, when it comes to listening to landlords and kind of wishing that they had. And I know I get the same thing with our students too. A lot of our students have started on their own and they just don't know how to scale. And so we just cannot stress enough to you guys about how important it is to have some systems. There's some questions here in the chat already, guys. Thanks for starting up and putting them in there. Some of you guys are asking what system, so we're going to get into that. So hang tight. We're going to let Corey here chime in and see when he first realized when he needed systems in order to scale his portfolio and run it like a business so you're not pulling your hair out. Oh my God. I don't believe you for a minute.
All I've been told is like, make sure you're on mute when you're not talking. So there we go. I was just joking that my earliest memory as a young child was all about you have to have systems. No, very early on too. I filled up my knowledge cup early on in the game with real estate investing, and that helped out with the foundation. But when I was 3 properties in, I think I remember hitting like that 10 door mark because there was a 6-plex and a triplex and a triplex. And I'm like, this stuff is just taking way too long. And even though I was self-employed and I had that time flexibility, I'm like, there's got to be an easier way to compress time frames, right? So that was about 2 or 3 properties in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And especially, I think if you guys are, if you guys have a job and you're trying to manage your property, a lot of people, okay, here's a question. And just like nod your heads, yes or no. Like, is buying rentals passive investing? Okay. So for those of you that are, yeah, here we go. Yeah, thumbs down. It is not passive, guys. It is the equity, the appreciation that you're making in the property is passive, but it is very active. Okay. And so I think that is a misconception. And so when you have an active business, what happens is you're going to need processes around that, right? We had someone here that asked a question over what kind of systems and processes that are needed for best practices for deferring processes. I'm not sure about the end of the message, but I'm going to throw it out to the group here to talk about different. Yeah, Josh, like what kind of systems that you found very helpful and that you started initiating early on?
Yeah, to me, I think the way I typically focus at the kind of the tenant acquisition part of it. So there, where you really need to understand, when I look at it, your rental, it is a product. What kind of product is it? Who is it for? Understanding that. And then when you're getting it ready to list, where are you going to list it? How are you going to find it? What price are you going to set? How many people are you going to screen? What kind of questions are you going to do when you're asking people and showing? You need a whole system from start to finish for getting the place ready as well. Are you going to stage it? Are you going to get it professionally cleaned? Again, there's a number of questions, and there's not one answer. You know your product better than anyone else. And depending on where your property is, who you're trying to rent it to, how long you're trying to rent it for, what your goals are, the answers are going to be different. So it doesn't really matter. I can't give you the answers, but to me, really, the process is you have to think about this and come up with what works for you and what you're trying to do with your business. So again, to me, the biggest one is around screening tenants. I know we talked about, if we want to make this a business and you want to make this scalable, you need to avoid bad tenants. And so to me, making sure that you can get enough quality tenants, quality prospects in the door. So to me, that's the biggest thing to avoiding a bad tenant is talking to a lot of people. If you get a lot of prospective tenants who want to see the place, you'll find someone who's good. If you talk to 2 people and you have to pick from one of 2 people, like even if you do a credit check, it might not be good. You should obviously also have a whole screening process for, are you checking background? Are you calling friends and family and their referrals and all that, references? But to me, that's really where I focus most of my time and effort for the processes. There's also about actually, when you're in the process of looking for a new property, there are processes there, that I think you also have to think about of what kind of risk you're willing to take on. But to me, the biggest step that I look at on a day-to-day basis is filling a unit, what kind of processes, and how do we look at who we want to fill that unit with.
I think that's critical, Josh, honestly. Frank, I hope you're paying attention here because putting in a good tenant into your property could cost you time and money. Okay, time and or money. And if you have a bad tenant, it will cost you time and money. because managing bad tenants is just going to suck on your time to try to stick handle all of the complaints, everything that they're coming at you at. And they're going to start being really hard on your property and potentially not even paying. And somebody has put in the chat there that they're struggling with somebody who hasn't paid for 5 months. And so this is a very real risk. So if you can have a really solid process for tenant vetting to put a solid tenant, not a good tenant, not a bad tenant, but a great tenant in your property, it's going to be less time to manage and less money that's going to cost you in order to maintain that property. Okay, so this is really, really critical. It is your first line of defense in protecting your asset. First line of defense, guys. And I think a lot of people take it very lightly. We just shared with our students here. A big package on what they should, a checklist on all of the things and the documents that they should have every time you do a new tenant move in. So, I mean, I know Hart, you have a process for that. Josh, you have a process for that. Corey and I, we have processes for that. You absolutely have to have that. Hart. Okay, so you put a lot in there as far as different processes, and obviously you're in the tenant placement, so you got a lot on that. I know you also have a big package that you go through as well, and a whole process when you're vetting tenants. Do you want to speak on what other processes that you find are very important in systematizing your real estate business?
For sure. And I think I could probably talk for like 45 minutes about one element of tenant screening. So we'll leave that for now. Definitely a whole webinar on how to screen tenants. But I think ironically, even when you have a really good tenant, what's often forgotten is the tenant management and the property management and actually maintaining your asset. A lot of people say, help me place my tenant, but I'm going to self-manage, because like, what do you really do? You just collect rent and you call a plumber once a year or something like that. And so ultimately, if you think about the systems and processes you may need, think about every step that happens at that building, right? You move a tenant in, you need a move-in process. When the tenant needs to pay rent on the first, you need a rent collection process. What are you using to collect that rent? Is it cash? Is it check? Is it e-transfer? Is it PAD? Is it a payment provider? Then when anything goes wrong, what is your system for dealing with small repairs, large repairs, emergency repairs, annual maintenance, biannual maintenance? And so at every step of the way, that's what you have to think about. How are people actually submitting repair requests, maintenance requests? And then if things hit the proverbial fan, what happens when things go wrong, right? And so when a tenant stops paying rent, or if they pay rent late, when are you going to send them an email? When are you going to call them? When are you going to serve them the N4? When are you going to file your L1? Are you going to take them to the LTB? At what amount are you going to pursue them? Are you going to identify them as reporting rent, or are you going to report their rent as late? Are you going to pursue them to collections? And so every potential step should have a system, because if you are in business long enough, if you are in the landlord business long enough, things will go wrong and you need systems for that, and things will go right or somewhere in the middle and you need systems for that. So what we do is every step and every potential step, you play a little choose your own adventure game. You need systems to deal with anything that may come up.
Yeah, and honestly, guys, if it's something that you've done once and you're going to do it multiple times, then you definitely want to create a system around that. And this is how, write this down. This is how you start a system. Start with a checklist. It's not complicated. And then from that checklist, you can start filling in the gaps, maybe. And this is what Hart said. He's like, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? Well, it's not just about when, but who are you going to call? So if you're serving the the N4, like, who's filling that out? Is that you? If there's a repair, who's doing that? So it's not just when are you going to handle it, but who are you calling? And that has to be all kind of pre-built into your system so that it can be easily and quickly delegated and handled. So Ryan here asked a question. When is it a good idea to get a property manager? Because, and that's a big question for a lot of people. Because everybody's excited when they get their first property. They want to do it themselves. They know they can. And why would I pay, 8-10% to a property manager? And then after you get 4 or 5 properties, it's like, oh, wow, like this is happening. I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm going to throw this out to Kayla. When do you think it's a good idea to get a property manager?
Well, one, I think it's going to be if you don't know what you're doing, then you want to get yourself a property manager so that they have a better understanding. But when you do get your property manager, you honestly have to screen them just like you would screen your tenants to make sure that there's some synergy there. They know what they're doing. You got to learn their process of what they do, when, how they collect rent, when they give out their notices, when they do their inspections. So it's really important to screen a property manager just like we do our tenants. And sometimes a property manager now comes in handy when we are dealing with difficult tenants and there's a lot of hostility happening between you and the tenant. So sometimes a third party coming in just to settle the waters and introduce new rules and processes, because there's a lot of landlords that think it's okay to let the tenant away with certain things and be like, it's okay. But then it starts becoming a pattern. It's now starting to ruin the enjoyment of other tenants. And now you have to deal with it. And they're going to go, well, it wasn't a problem before. Why is it now? So incorporating a property manager into that equation now could help address the issue and also take that emotion that you have towards your property out of it. And that's usually how it goes. Or you're now at a spot where, my husband, like, I've been a stay-at-home mom since I was 20. I've been lucky to be able to raise my kids. And now my husband's like, I'm tired of the 9 to 5. I don't need it anymore to hold on to any jobs that he needs to get the funding from the banks. He's been able to scale our rental properties to a point where it's going to carry itself. And now he just goes around renovating our own units and moving tenants over and getting them into a brand new renovated unit. Well, their unit now becomes available. So we play like musical tenants. And he's also helping his landlord buddy, who we met in Ontario Landlords Watch. And they're now, I call him his husband, because they're like a peas in a pod, because they are totally bonded through real estate and stock market. So it's great to see that relationship has transpired. But that's usually what I would say for property management when you're ready to let someone else do it. But please, I urge everyone to screen their property manager, because not everyone is cut out for the job. Because some people get into the business of property management because they think it's easy money as well. So.
Well, and they think it's easy.
I think it's easy. I think.
It is not. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. If you want to manage your own properties, guys, don't let them know you own the property, because they will deal with you very differently than if they think you're just a manager. So as soon as you tell them you're the owner, that really does change the conversation and what the tenant's expectations are of you. And so always kind of put a barrier between you and the tenants. Okay. That's just my 2 cents with that.
Danielle,
also,
you're right on. Like, I had to say,
right?
like, I tell our landlords, if you're driving like a nice car, I'm like, you're getting yourself a little like beat up Civic, go pick up rent, do your maintenance. Like, there's people who have their name attached to their lease, but they pretend that they're the maintenance guy, but really they're the landlord. And unfortunately, like, that is the way things are happening in Ontario when you don't want to give too much information out to the tenants. So bang on with that advice.
Yeah, ask me how I know, Kayla.
How do you know?
Oh my, I had a tenant come after me on social media and everybody's like, take it down. I'm like, no, leave it. That's the real world. That's what happens. Like, I know I'm not a bad landlord, so let this guy, vent. But yeah, I mean, it's stressful. You don't need people trying to hunt you down, look up your address and stuff like that. And you just don't know who you're dealing with, guys. So always try to have a barrier between you and your tenants. Having said that, when you hire a property manager, and you said that, Kayla, you need to vet the property manager, but it doesn't end there. The biggest mistake that Corey and I see all the time is that landlords will hire a property manager and then they wash their hands and they think it's good. Like, they think we're done. Like, oh, property manager is going to take care of it. You've now moved from the position of property manager to asset manager. Now you have to manage the manager, okay? And the systems and process, I'm going to tell you, I've had many, many different property managers in my career, and I have taught my managers the systems that I want followed, because many property management companies out there have maybe old processes that they just haven't updated, something they've been doing for a long time. It works for them, but it's not necessarily what needs to be done today. And so just remember that you need to manage the manager, guys. Okay. And if you're doing, side note, if you're doing rehabs or renovations, you hire a contractor. Again, don't make that mistake. You have to manage your contractor. So everybody needs to be managed, guys. Okay. When you're running a business, you go into the business of managing, right? I'm going to throw that question over to Corey here, because Corey has a really interesting way of managing his properties. And I know, like, I personally want my time back, so I like to have property managers. Corey has a very healthy portfolio, and he does all of his property management in house. So maybe, Corey, you can jump in and maybe talk from the other side. Like, you didn't go into hiring a property manager, and because of the systems that you have in place, that allowed you the ability to regain that, or to retain that control. So do you want to share with people about that and what that looks like for you, and maybe the pros and cons to managing, self-managing multiple properties?
For sure. No, thanks. Yeah, and to Kayla's point earlier, she's, she made a comment that you really have to understand yourself, right? Like some people, you got to take yourself out of that position as soon as possible, because if you don't have management of managing people or projects like in you, like in your bones, then it's probably not the best option for you to try to go out there and be self-managing, right? You'll get your butt kicked pretty quick. So I come from that background. That's how my personality is. I actually enjoy managing people and projects. So for me, it was an easier transition than for most people. But it's, again, I'm also big on who, not how too. I went out there and looked for property management companies that would, there wasn't Rent Panda back when I was first self-managing, and all these other companies. Like really the options were pretty, poor to terrible. And I remember going to these events and seminars and people were like, well, at some point you're going to have to hire a property manager. And I said, well, what if I could actually insource it and bring in, that realization when I had 10 doors. That's when I got my first part-time helper. And it was a family member, but still they were putting in 10 hours a week or 5 or 10 hours a week helping. And then the portfolio grew and it kept growing. And now it's to the point where I've got a full-time staff member that manages about 80 doors and a storage facility. And, by having those systems, it's immeasurable how much time it can save, right? And I've basically just taken everything out of my head, out of my documents, and just taught someone else how to go manage the portfolio. So still check in with them, multiple times a week. We had a phone call today. The only downside of that is, when stuff hits the fan and they don't know how to answer it, it's coming back on you, right? As opposed to if there was a property manager there, I'd be like, deal with it. It's Sunday. Literally, we had our storage facility broken into on the night of Father's Day. So half my Father's Day was spent dealing with OPP and clients and different things. So but that's just what I'm signing up for. I'm fully aware.
I love that. Yeah. Now, Corey, you let them know that you are the landlord, right? Like you always.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I do want to have that barrier in between me as well. I usually refer to, a partner. So it's, it's not my property. It's not solely my property. It's definitely, I've got to consult my partner on that. I'm really the boots on the ground and I take care of managing the properties. So that's why we have the business.
All right. So that's the ninja tip for the night, guys. I have a partner, and your partner could be your cat that you have to go consult. Okay. You definitely need to have a partner, and you say, well, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check in with my partner. And that's always your out until you can come back to them. Okay. Good cop, bad cop works really, really well. Yeah. Kayla's like, yep.
It does. Like people know like someone's in trouble if I'm around, right? So it's the good cop, bad cop. The only thing I like to say is like sometimes with a PO box, it's about their address. They can find like your name, find out who you are. You can pretend that you have a partner kind of going on there, but sometimes it's just having that PO box where you're putting on the lease where your information that the tenants are going to potentially serve you any type of documents. So you put that part. That's the part that really makes me nervous, and it's a part of that advocacy that I'm trying to, tell our government like, hey, tenants get the skipper off, but our house stays here. Like there's, why do we have to put our personal information out there? But hey, we're in the business. This is what you signed up for. This is why some people I think go through a corporation. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's definitely bad if you want to use it for personal use. So take that in consideration when you are trying to still hide your identity, and you might think that a corporation is going to help that. It could backfire when you are trying to utilize it to deal and manage with your tenants.
Yeah, and Hitten said here, how do you not let the tenant know that you're the landlord when your name's on the lease? And you mentioned here, Kayla, about registering into a corp. there's another question here. I can jump in and throw that question up about, you know, whether you should have it in a corp or in your personal name. So if you have it in a corp, you could put on the lease document the corp name, and then that way you're signing on behalf of the corp, and you just say, look, you know, I have partners. They don't really need to know the whole corporate structure. And really, the lease agreement is with the corporation, and which is considered an entity, and the tenant. And so that's a good way to kind of mask that a little bit. And you just say, I work for the corp, which is not a lie. Because obviously you're working for your corp. The corp is its own entity. So I definitely recommend that you start buying properties in a corp, guys, because it will help you with putting a corporate veil between your personal assets and your business assets. I'm just trying to find, maybe the team can help me out, but there was a question on the corp. Oh, here it is. Okay. So do you put the rental properties under corp or personal, and what are the cons for both? So I'm going to throw this out to Josh here. And Josh's like, what? You know, if you know any pros, like, what do you do? What do you do personally, Josh? Not everybody does corps, by the way.
Yeah.
I recommend corps, but not everybody does it. I'll talk a little bit more about why I do that, but maybe you can share of your personal experience and why you've gone the direction you've gone in.
So my personal one is personal, but it's in a personal, not a corp. But if I were to, I'm looking at more, and those would be in a corp. The reason is because mine's currently a duplex, so I live in half and rent out the other half. And so for me personally, that's the right decision. But I do think that a corporation, especially, again, everyone here is looking to grow this as a business, and as you scale, it makes more and more sense to have a corporation. Again, if your goal is just one, it might make sense just keep it personal. But as you grow, that structure that a corp gives, as well as the distance it has, helps. And again, maybe this is a little too far out there, but if you're also thinking about, I know one of the previous people was saying that his dad had 20, was thinking of handing it down. Corporation can also make it easier when you're thinking about future planning for, is this going to go to, how is this going to be divided? Should I decide to pass this on? So corporations have those kinds of advantages. So I do think obviously consult a lawyer, and which I am definitely not, even though I play one on TV. But I think that as you scale, a corporation makes more and more sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hart, how do you structure your rentals?
Perfect, because I was just going to jump in and say, as the son of an accountant and being a property manager, I would make the decision about a personal or a corp based on your tax implications, your legal implications, and your growth plan. So from a financing perspective, things may evolve over time. Your first, your second, your third may be personal. You may look at family members as partners and put it under their name. If you run a business that has a significant liability, like I do, you may not put it under your personal name. So I wouldn't defer to how you purchase a property and who or what is on title based on what you need to put on the lease document to introduce yourself to a tenant. I would really defer to tax implications, legal implications, and financing implications. And I popped it in the chat there, but if you don't want to introduce yourself as the landlord, put Mr. Togman on the lease and hi, I'm Hart. Make up a name if you really want to. Say you have a partner. There are other kind of soft strategies, and I would lean on tax and legal and financing reasons to do corp or personal. And definitely talk to your professional in your life, and you should have them.
I was just going to go there. Yeah, because listen, everybody's situation is different. And this is why, so I'm going to jump in here, Hart. I'm going to piggyback on what you said. The reason why I put everything in corporations is for that reason. It's for tax and legal purposes, okay? You definitely have way more room to do different things when it comes to the tax planning. And so you should have a tax specialist on your team to consult with. But the legal reasons are really my number one reason why I put everything in a corp. And the legal reasons, because what happens if somebody decides to sue me? If they slip and fall, they get hurt. You know, the mail, it doesn't even have to be a tenant, but mailman. And I understand we're not in a litigious country. That's more south of us. However, it does happen, and I am currently being sued right now. So having said that, yeah, and you know, and this was something that was out of my control. and they're suing me. Now, if something happens that they win and my current insurance policy doesn't cover it, or they get more than what I can, than what the policy allows, then they can come after my personal assets. But when you have it in an entity, in a corp, then you're keeping it within the corporate veil, and it's whatever's within the corp. So they can only come after that. And so that is really like just protecting. I put my properties in silos in order to protect them. And so once you have 20, 40 tenants, and then in each unit you have, 3, 4 people living there, and you just never know. COVID happened. There was a lot of people down on their times and things were, and that's what happened with this lawsuit that I'm in. Honestly, it's frivolous, but at the end of the day, you have to deal with that, and you just never know which way it's going to go. So for me, it's about limiting risk and reducing my liabilities. So it's really a legal issue, but there's also tax benefits to that. But highly, highly recommend everybody to go and consult with their professional team. Okay. So there's some other questions here. I'm going to go over to Tahid. And Corey, if it's under personal, can you move it into a corp? A lot of people think it can't be done.
Well, I was just typing in the chat that we could literally do a webinar just on, we're getting a lot of questions about accounting and taxes and liability and all those sorts of things. And that is very, very important as a real estate investor. Yeah, for me, like my own personal situations, my personal stuff, I'm keeping it, personal for now. And I've started buying in a corp a long time ago. So I've never actually done it myself, but I'll refer to the accountants here in the room.
Yeah, there's a rollover. You can absolutely put it into, but the thing is that you're either you can sell it and pay the land transfer tax, or you're going to pay an accountant to roll it over. When you roll it over, it has to be the same ownership of the personal into the corp. So whatever the ownership is when you're rolling it over has to be identical, and then you can do it that way without having to sell and trigger capital gains. Because when you do sell, you're going to trigger that capital gains. But if it's existing in personal, you're not going to have it forever. You can assess the risk, guys, and decide whether or not it's a high risk property. Maybe you just want to keep it personal. Eventually, you'll probably sell it. And you won't have to go through that. But again, I just want to defer that back to the professional team, guys. We're giving you kind of high level what it is to think about, so you have some better questions when you're talking to your professionals. But again, it's really dependent on where you're at.
So I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah.
Tahid actually had a different question earlier, and I did want to address it. Tahid had asked about using a real estate agent to, this is something I can actually answer a little more. Again, these legal questions, I would always recommend speak to your legal professional, because your situation will differ. So we can give broad answers, but again, you want the best advice for your situation. Tahid had asked about using a real estate agent when filling it. Their rental. And I'm biased, but I will give you my 2 cents that I think it is best that you go and find the person to fill your unit, not through a real estate agent, not because those professionals are not good at what they do, but because of incentives. To me, their incentive is to find someone quick for you. No one's going to care as much about filling your unit with someone who is great and going to pay and be respectful as you are. And you might not have the expertise now, but this is how you want to learn. You want to get your hands dirty now before you have 20, 30, 40 units. And you got to make those. Sometimes it might take you a little more time, but the cost of maybe, delaying filling that that unit by 2-3 weeks, yes, you may lose some rent, but the cost of a bad tenant is so much bigger than missing out by not having an extra week, or having an extra week of rent by filling it a little sooner. So I personally do not think you should go the route of using real estate agents, especially if you want to grow this into a business. They're expensive. Again, they're good at what they do. And if this is just a side thing and you want to have one unit, that's completely acceptable. But if you're really looking to grow this, you need to learn what to look for when screening tenants, how to find tenants, what questions to ask, and you can work with a real estate agent that first time to get that information. But to me, I really think you want to use that as a learning opportunity. So hopefully that answers your question from way back to Heed about using real estate agents to fill a unit.
Yeah. So if you're here's the thing on that, to heed. Josh is absolutely right. The agents can fill up the tenant, fill up the unit, and essentially the biggest benefit that they have is they're going to post it on MLS, and that really puts it out to a wide audience. And you're going to get a better demographic looking at and replying to that. However, they maybe don't have the system. So unless you have the systems that you're going to share with the real estate agent and tell them this is what you want them to follow, it's really important that you manage that. Okay, so it's more than just showing the unit and saying fill out the application. It's really about doing the screening. So I'm going to throw this over to Vic's question. What documents do you look for when you're doing your tenant screening? So I know there is a ton of documents. I do use Rent Panda on some of my units in order to do the tenant placement and tenant screening. And we also use a third-party platform to collect a lot of that documentation, which I like because it limits, again, my liability for handling sensitive information, and it gives me what I need in order to make a decision on the tenant. But whether you do it yourself or you have a third party pull that documentation and do the verifications, I'm going to throw it to the panel here and ask Kayla, what type of information do you require from potential tenants before you make that decision?
You can ask for everything underneath the sun from the, so if you have an employment letter that's coming from the tenants, you want to take that information, you want to reference it with the people that's on LinkedIn to see if the person that they stated on this documentation is actually legit, because we're starting to see a very strong influx of counterfeit documentation and Photoshop documentation. So you want to make sure that they're all aligning. Then you're looking at how long they've been at their job and analyzing, like, is it a risky job that they're currently in based on their type of trade? We start to see that through COVID. And that's, I think COVID changed the way that we are doing our type of screening. We're definitely asking for the credit check. And I just asked the tenant for their credit check because I want to see if they have that potential of giving me a fraudulent one, knowing that I am still going to do the credit check myself and making sure that my documentation given to them through the application process indicates that they are giving me permission to do a credit check. Then I will do my credit check with Front Lobby in order to align what they put on the application, such as address, make sure it's all matching with what's on their credit report, and of course their job, because their job is indicated on there as well. So a lot of it's going to also go down to that feeling of like, is there one lie that tenant gave me that's going to make me look at another application? Because we usually take about 2 applications, and that's usually where we're trying to say, okay, is it A, is it B, is it the blue pill, the red pill? That's the part where we don't really quite know. And I've seen a comment in here about leaving their unit empty in order to get the right type of tenant. And yes, you're going to risk that vacancy tax that some municipalities have, which we're fighting, by the way. But it is imperative that we keep it empty to make sure you're getting the right type of tenants, because it's not worth it when you can see that they can stay in your unit for at least a year. They cannot pay you rent for a year. They can also file different applications on you at the Landlord and Tenant Board. They can file different applications against you at the Human Rights Tribunal. So you have to be very careful on who we're screening. And sometimes it's about reaching out to the communities and talking it over with other landlords and say, hey, this is the application. Do you see any red flags? Is there something that I should be worried about? Sometimes it's just about connecting with your peers, and that's what's going to strengthen this housing industry if we are working together.
Yeah. And there are professional tenants out there, guys. Asking for the right documentation, vetting for the right tenant, and waiting for that tenant is going to help you avoid having those professional tenants that will milk the system because they understand they don't need to pay. They can go and ask for hearing in order to get evicted, and they will drag it out. And look at, if your rent that you're charging is $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 in a year that you have to carry that property. Do you have that to carry that mortgage? And on top of it all, they can and potentially will create some damage in the unit before leaving. I've heard horror stories where tenants will just turn on taps and walk away. All kinds of, put holes in the walls because they know it's going to make your life miserable and incur another $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in damages. I've had, one of my washing machines was urinated into. Well, it was just full of urine. And yeah, these things do happen, guys, right? And so asking for the right documentation, doing a tenant vetting process, waiting for a month or two is just the cost of an insurance policy. Okay. Truly, it will be less time, less money, less headache. Corey, is there any additional information that you ask for when you're doing your tenant vetting process?
Hopefully everybody can hear me here. Seems like I'm frozen. Let me try
Oh, you
switching
are
to-
frozen. Okay, well, we'll put you on hold. We'll come back to you. How about we go to Hart? I know Hart's got lots of different.
Yeah, so I'll be quick because Corey looks to be back.
I'm
But
like, they're going to be fighting.
ultimately, I'd say there's a ton of screening providers. There's a ton of potential documents to ask for based on the tenant profile. My one key takeaway is verify those documents. And there is no reason to trust a document provided to you by tenants. There's so much fraud these days. It used to be that anyone could, learn Photoshop pretty quickly and adjust a document. Now ChatGPT will do it for you, and many different AI platforms. So it has never been this easy to create fraudulent documents. So make sure you pull your own documents, you verify them, and there's software out there that will read a document and analyze whether it has been tampered with, even if you are collecting those documents direct from the tenant. So that's my biggest nugget and takeaway.
Which is one of the reasons why I like using Hart at Rent Panda, because I do know that they screen these documents. Now, having said that, Hart, before we go to Corey, you had a pastor.
I did. We had a pastor apply to a main floor of a duplex in Oshawa. I was actually showing the property, so back to the days of doing it all myself, which was a no-no. We had a pastor apply. I met him in person. He brought his whole family out. Very nice individual, provided me all of his documentation, including an ID, an employment letter, the website of his church. And in screening them, everything looked good, put it into the document verification systems, and found out that the church was fake. He was an online pastor with a YouTube audience. His ID was completely fraudulent. Everything about his bank statements was fraudulent. And maybe technically he had his pastor certification, but that was the only thing true about his entire application. So we denied him, but never let your emotions guide you. And if you think, we've seen fraudulent documentation from OPP officers, from pastors, from lawyers, from real estate agents. So do not trust anything. And Danielle, as you always say, trust but verify. So if you are going to trust, make sure you at least verify.
Yeah, and I'm like dead set against assumptions. So don't just assume because they have a good job or they're a pastor that they're going to be, legit and the right tenant, because I've seen some some nurses that just were terrible. There's just a lot, like, you just can't assume based on their profession or what they do. So it's really important. Okay, Corey, what documents do you look for that maybe Kayla didn't mention? Was there anything else that you request?
Yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, obviously start off with a strong application form. Like if you're vetting and this is your front line of defense, you want to make sure that you're getting all the information that you want. Don't just get their previous landlord, get the previous landlord, get as many landlords as you can, because they're, a professional tenant eye makeup is only going to try so hard to fake the story of like having their friend as a landlord. They pick up the phone. You want to make sure that you're getting a copy of their ID. You can check them out on social media. You can get a criminal check. There's lots of different things that you can check for sure. But we want to see all of it. We want to have conversations with their employers, with their past landlords. It's so important. And again, there, guys, just spend the extra time doing this on the front end. It'll save you so much headache on the back end. And, people are afraid of having that vacant unit. I saw in the chat here about vacancy taxes. That kicks in after 6 months, I believe, in Toronto and Vancouver. So you shouldn't have your unit vacant for 6 months. And that, if you have a great marketing system, which we haven't really talked much about, I always tell people that it's kind of like a YouTube video. It's all about how you market your units, and it's thumbnail, title, and the copy or the content that's in there. So always make sure you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to your rentals. But yeah, when you have systems, you can actually move faster, have a bigger funnel, get more applicants in. Josh was sharing his process there in the chat, so make sure you're tuning in the chat. But you want to narrow it down to your top, 3 or so, and then you're pulling credit check and all that sort of stuff on them at that point too. So even just as simple as getting a copy of their ID. I've literally had tenants like with a different name. I'm like, oh, that's my nickname. I'm like, nickname, eh? Really? Interesting. We didn't pursue any further.
Yeah, and you know what? Take a moment when you're trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. Honestly, like if you have to, don't try to bend things to make them fit the narrative that you want. Take what the facts are in front of you at face value. Trust your gut, and yeah, don't take people just because you're feeling desperate to fill that vacancy. Okay. Okay, so Corey, you got me so excited. You brought up marketing, and we're talking about systems and how to build systems. Marketing is the heart of your business. And obviously, if you want to fill your vacancy quickly, you need to get the word out there. You need a really strong marketing in order to bring that in. And I want to come to you, Hart, because you're in marketing, but Josh is nodding his head so profusely that he won the battle to go first. So, Josh, marketing.
There you go.
What systems do you use in order to market? And what tips can you share with the audience here as far as marketing to attract the best tenants possible?
For sure. Well, I think marketing is severely underinvested in this area, in that I think a lot of people say, you know what, I don't want to spend some money on marketing. I'll save it. I'll post on Facebook. I'll post it on Kijiji for free. And to me, it's, for people who've been in sales, like the quality of lead is very, very valuable. You want a lot of leads to fill your funnel. And so my big thing is always pay that money, pay a little bit of a premium to get a lot of leads, get the word out there. This is just like from a strategic standpoint, the more leads you have, the higher likelihood you're going to find someone great. That's just not about, then there's the tactics of how to actually position it. And you want great photos, you want to do a great job of using descriptions. A lot of that stuff also can be much easier now with some of these tools, like ask ChatGPT to write up a description of the area. There's tools to make your photos look better. There's a lot there. The other big thing I would say is this, since this is an investment, like you're trying to push rents a little. In order to push rents a little more, like, you could fill a unit at a lower rate potentially, but the higher the rent goes, you're going to need more people, more impressions. You're going to need to show it to more people in order for someone qualified to find it. So I really do think, like, also do your research on what's a reasonable rent. And to me, I always look at marketing as an investment, in that I'm paying a little bit more, but if I can push rents 5% faster than the market, that is well worth the money that I'm spending to get that additional exposure and impressions. There's a lot of great sites out there. Rentals.ca has, to me, I'm biased, but by far the best rental report. So if you want to find what the rents are and how that's changing in different markets, I'd highly recommend going there. And they also have great tools for posting your rental and helping you get more exposure. So that's to me something I'm really passionate about, is the marketing of these units. But I'll let Hart talk, because I could talk about this forever.
Before Hart jumps in there, Hart, I think it's really important. I just want to emphasize something that Josh said here. What you charge for rent is critical when it comes to marketing, and Hart can really go in there too. But I'm telling you guys, a lot of people want top dollar. They want to push as much as they can, and they want to get that extra $50-$60 a month. But I'm telling you, as soon as you start doing that, you start losing some really great tenants. If you just downgrade, you figure out what the top of your price range is, and make sure you can have a realtor have, the resource that Joshua shared. What is it? Rentals.ca, right?
Rentals.ca, yeah. It's got a rent report, and it tracks every month in every city for 1-2 bachelors what the rental rate's going and how that's changing, because things change quick. And so it's really important to just like know the market and know your product really well and how it stands up against everything else around you, because you are competing with the condo down the street, a house 2 blocks down. It is a ever-changing market, so you want to make sure that you have the best and most up-to-date information.
Yeah, and so if you bring that rent down a little bit, those great tenants are going to see, hey, this is a really great price of a deal, and they're going to want to go in there and apply. So just really important, guys. It'll also be a wider funnel for you guys to have more people applying. So, and for that little extra that you're giving up, you're really going to find that better tenant. I promise you. Heart, marketing. Tell me.
So first and foremost, I couldn't agree more with Josh. And we syndicate our listings through RentSync, through rentals.ca, and push it out there. And primarily to be a bit of bearer of bad news, we are not in a rental market that we saw in 2023 and 2022, 2017. Like, you can't just post a property on Facebook and get 1,000 messages, and one of them is going to be an amazing tenant. You have to post out to multiple platforms. We're in a pay-to-play world, and all of the marketplaces have really pushed that. We used to be non-believers in even platforms like Kijiji because it didn't yield any results. But when you pay for Kijiji, you get the results. When you pay for Facebook posts, you get the results. When you pay for RentSync, not only do you get the results, but you can be hands-off and be on 12 different platforms at once. But we're in a more advanced world, and it's a much different market. And again, just like Josh said, you are in competition with other landlords, and that's never been more true than right now. Again, we have 30-year high supplies. So if you have a condo in downtown Toronto, you are in competition with every single other probably exact same condo in that building. And so the person that drops their rent by 25 or 50 bucks, the person that pays for that extra listing, they are going to get that high quality tenant first. So we're in a different market. All that being said, when you do those postings, you can't have a crappy posting and pay, and then it's going to work out. So from the start, you need to have high quality photos. You need to have videos. You need to have a quality description that actually attracts the tenant profile that you want. You need to be on platform responding, or have systems that auto respond for you and drive people to links to engage. Because oftentimes, if a tenant is a high quality tenant who's working all day long, who's searching at 10 o'clock at night, and they're messaging 30, 40, 50 landlords to go see the place tomorrow or that weekend, the first person or the second person to respond is going to get their engagement, and they're just going to forget about the rest of them. So throughout the marketing process, you need to think about it like a business. You need to have the systems in place to treat it as if it was your full-time job. And to the question of, should you hire a property manager, a real estate agent, a leasing specialist, if you can't treat it like your full-time job in the moment, in that crucial moment, then you may want to consider hiring someone who can, and doing all the vetting of that person to make sure they're going to be responding in a timely manner, taking good quality photos. All of those steps that you would have in your system, they need to have in theirs.
I love that. It's really important, guys, that you take your marketing seriously, and that's what's going to help you be able to vet, find the great tenant, and avoid those professional tenants. So the marketing is a system that you really have to build out. The tenant vetting system, right from the application to the showing, reading the application, and then putting them into the unit is a system itself. So the tenant walkthrough, that's a whole system, and then managing the property is another system. So guys, like, chunk it down. Think about the whole landlording process from start to finish, from when you first start putting it out there that you have a vacancy to the time a tenant leaves and what you do when they leave. And chunk it down, and then just build a checklist for each step of the process, each part of each system. And then that's when you can start seeing that, oh, okay, I do a lot of this stuff over and over again. What can I delegate? Who do I call in these instances? And then it will help you stay more organized. All right, guys. I want to thank Corey here for nudging me about 3 minutes ago to tell me that we're about to go over time. So having said that, I'm going to pop this up, and I've got a few slides to go over real quick, guys, a couple of announcements, and I have that promise that I made to you guys for a free resource. So what I'm going to do is right here, mark your calendars. We have the next one. The next webinar that we have is on July 16th, and it's going to be at 8 p.m., 8 p.m., not 7. So it's going to be a different time. And it's going to be with Daniel Foch, and he is all about the economy. We love having conversations with Daniel Foch here. He is absolutely amazing at how he looks at things. And I've had private conversations with this man, and there's not very much that he said that I would actually disagree with. Like, he has been very, very spot on in predicting what's happening in the economy, how that relates to us. He's a real estate investor himself. He's in the real estate space. So it's really good to translate that into what's happening in the economy, into how that affects us. So if you really want to get your finger on the pulse with the economy, what's happening, make sure you scan this. While you're there, this QR code is going to take you to Eventbrite. I hope the team is putting in the link in the chat as well for you guys. So yeah, it's right here, guys. So what'll happen is when you go to Eventbrite, make sure you click on follow organizer, because any new events that we have coming up, we will be sharing it in Eventbrite, and then you guys won't miss it. Okay, so make sure you don't miss it. July 16th. The next thing is, I told you guys I was going to remind you with the WhatsApp community, all of the stuff that we talked about tonight. And if you had a question, let's put it into the WhatsApp chat and continue the conversations. There was a lot of questions around corporate structure and what to do and holding corp. Sorry, guys, I couldn't get to all of those. We really wanted to try to keep it on building systems for your business to scale. So if you have more questions about that, put it in the chat. We can have the conversation there. Okay, so you can scan this QR code, jump right into our public community, and then we'll keep the conversation going there. Now, here's the freebie that I promised you guys. It is 8:17 and we need to wrap this up because I'm 2 minutes over. What I will say, there's a few more questions in the chat. I'm going to ask maybe if the speakers want to stay on for a few minutes more. Maybe we can go for an extra 10 minutes or so till about 8:30 Eastern time. But in the meantime, here is the free resource for you guys. So make sure you scan this. I am telling you right now, the ultimate small landlord playbook, I've seen it. It is amazing. You're not going to want to miss that. So make sure you download that. And also, some of you guys were asking about what systems do you guys use, but also what tools do you use? And maybe, I don't know if you did already, Hart, but somebody did ask, what was the tool that Pardeep was asking? What tool do you recommend for the document verification that you were saying? So if you could share that in the chat, that would be awesome. But there's top 15 tools here. Guys, AI is everywhere. Like, we got apps for everything 10 times over. This is just a high level list of tools for you guys to start looking at. And if you look at this resource and you pick one and it helps you in your everyday, then it's worth it. So pick one, implement it. And then, once you get that as part of your system, then you can pick another and implement that. The other thing that I want to say, these are tools, but there are service providers as well. And everybody on this panel has a service to help you in your business. So Hart does leasing, Josh, like, we all do things. And so make sure you connect with your speakers here in order to capitalize on that. All right. Now, if you guys enjoyed the webinar tonight, we wanted to make it about you and answer your questions, and we want to continue with that. But in order for us to do that effectively, there's a couple of questions we'd love for you to answer. Nobody loves surveys. I promise you, it's 3 questions. That's it. You can remain anonymous if you want. You can put in your information if you want to share who's sharing it. Either way makes no difference. But what we're looking for is a little bit of feedback where you can share what topics that you want to talk about, maybe what you liked, what you didn't like, where we can improve. And this way we can keep delivering to you what it is that you want so that it stays relevant. So I would really love your feedback on this. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody in advance, because this is what's going to help us continue to deliver what you want. Okay. So if it's possible, to the speakers, are you guys okay? Give me a thumbs up. Are you guys okay to go for an extra 10 minutes? Maybe you can go to 8:30. There's a couple extra questions. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure we can get through a few more. All right. So let's see. Let's take a look here. Actually, let's do this. I got a few questions. I never got to my question list. So how about we go through a few questions here? Let's do like a speed round. Okay. So we're going to go Kayla, Corey, Josh, Hart. Kayla, Corey, Josh, Hart. 15 seconds or less. And this is the last call to you guys that are listening and watching. If you have any questions, post them now, because we've only got about 9.5 minutes to go. So if you got any final questions, around systems and building a business around your portfolio, guys, pop them in the chat. All right. So what systems or habits have made the biggest difference in your day-to-day operations? Kayla, go.
Systems? Is that you said just the
Systems.
front lobby system? That is the front lobby system.
Okay, tell people what it is. Tell
it's
people
everything.
what it is.
From credit reporting to background checks to monthly rent reporting that keeps our tenants on the straight and narrow. We can do all the checks and the balances, but there is that system that is still a problem where we have good tenants that go bad. Front lobby keeps them on that straight and narrow, knowing that every rent payment that they make could actually benefit them and help them grow their credit. I always tell our tenants when I'm like, everything works out, the bells, the whistles, everything's checks out. But I sit down with my tenants when they before they even get the keys and we're signing the lease. And I say, listen, I'm a really good landlord. If there's ever a maintenance issue, they're like, just call us, text us, we'll be there to fix it. But I'm letting you know right now that I do not tolerate any late payments. I do not tolerate any ruining the enjoyment of others. And I want the place to be clean and safe for others that are around here. You got to lay it out to the tenants right from the get-go. And Front Lobby allowed me to do that, incorporating that I am doing that monthly rent reporting to my tenants and letting them know I don't need your consent to report a debt to the credit bureaus. It's going to be able to be put on your credit report as a trade line. It's going to impact your credit score. And it's always also going to be able to deter you from being able to find future accommodations if you decide to not pay rent and abuse the system. So let's work this relationship strong and just know that I am a very easygoing landlord. Just be open with me, but you mess around, you find out, right? So, and that's usually the ball and chain that I have working. And you know what? Hey, all my tenants are great. I just had that one in 23 years, and you just have to keep that system working to say, hey, it's a business. I'm sorry to treat it like this, but it is a business, and that's how I work my business.
I love that. Guys, if you're not listening to this, I am telling you right now, we leverage everything. And this is leveraging a service in order to avoid professional tenants. And if you say right from the get-go that you're doing this, professional tenants will not want to be in your rental because they don't want it. So leverage, leverage, leverage. There's a lot of third-party providers out there that can help you avoid that. So that's one of them. Corey, what systems or habits made a big difference in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach on this one. Just ask yourself a different question, like what business are you actually in? And like, how can I do even better? So to me, that's about all the tools and resources and apps and service providers out there for sure. But also being a landlord or a property owner, you're in the fix-it business, you're in the communication business, you're in the customer service business. So you've got to always be trying to be the best that you can in all those different areas. And like Danielle said earlier, the barrier is low to be great in this industry, but the more doors you have and the more people you bring into your units, you do need to have those systems. You need, even with repairs. Okay. So just asking yourself a slightly different question, and how would it be easier for you? Right. So maybe linking arms with someone like Rent Panda, or using, what Joshua is offering here as well. Like, you don't have to struggle. Like, go look for what other people are using and how can it actually be easier, and use the technology at our fingertips to get ahead.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, Josh. Systems
I'm
or
also going to
habits
go
that make things easier. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think I try and get in the habit of talking to other landlords at least 3 times. I try and do it every day, but at least 3 times a week to see what they're going through. And I think that you can learn so much from others who have faced similar pitfalls or seen something in the market that you might not realize. And so just always trying to learn, that's always the thing, because whatever system process you have now, they're going to change, they're going to adapt. So being open-minded to that and just trying to continuously learn, that's the one that I think it's kind of a meta habit, but that to me has made the biggest difference.
Hart,
I think
you're
I'm
up.
next. Okay, cool. So for me, I think it's the habit of creating systems, because systems aren't just things that you put in place and live on forever without changing. So when we're looking at our business, we think the 4Ds. We do it ourselves. Do we want to do it automatically? So embed some sort of automation. Do we want to delegate, or do we want to ditch it? And a lot of things can be automated these days. A lot of things can be delegated to someone else, a professional, a VA, a mother-in-law, whatever it ends up being. And so we're constantly asking ourselves those 4 questions to make sure that we can build systems and reinvent those systems on a daily basis.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to throw this one out to Corey, and we're going to do, again, lightning round. How do you set expectations with tenant to avoid issues later on?
Great point. Much like Kayla, like we've just got a way that we position things, right? And for us, it's like, just do these 3 things and we'll get along great. Pay your rent on time, don't do damage to the unit, and don't harm the enjoyment of other people in the units, right? So you've got to be okay being firm with your tenants, and it's not a friend relationship. This is a business relationship, and you just got to lay it all out on the table. So this comes from years of experience of like, anytime something has gone wrong, we're going to have a conversation about it and set those expectations. And a lot of the conversation will come when you're vetting your tenants, but then the other half of it is when you're actually going through all the paperwork that you have to go, that you really should go through. I don't want to say have to, you should go through this with your tenants. Take the time. We book extra time and go through things thoroughly with them. We explain all the different paragraphs that we're going through, and we let them know why this is important to them and why we have this as a company policy. So make sure you make the time for having those conversations.
And you also, I know you do this, Corey, as well. You also will actually show people how to use your appliances and what to do, what not to do in the unit, right?
Yeah, everything is as little as, like, if we have nice window coverings, like this is literally how you do, like, you don't just, like, when the blinds are closed, you don't try to crank them up and rip all the strings and, like, because we've literally had tenants like just use things wrong, or like they don't know how to clean a glass top stove. So it's like, this is the cleaner that you're going to use, right? We just leave a bottle. Like, this is the sort of things that you need. So how do, like, so many tenants don't even know how to use a double hung window, right? So they're like, it's really cold here in the wintertime. I'm like, yeah, because the top of the window is open. So you got to push it up and pull it down and then latch it close. So don't expect people to, they haven't been homeowners. Even if they have been homeowners, don't assume that they know everything. Don't treat them like an idiot, but just make sure you're explaining everything thoroughly.
Love it. Okay. And we've got like 2 minutes here, 1.5 minutes. So I really want to I just realized I also had on my notes here to talk about record keeping. And I think that's just so critical when it comes to scaling as well. And so, Kayla, I'm going to ask you, try to keep this really short. I know it's hard because I'm going to go to all 4 of you guys. So all 4 of you guys, like 15, 20 seconds, best record keeping tips that you can share with the audience, because really this is critical and you should have a system around record keeping too. Go.
I think everyone needs to understand that, even if a good tenant situation is happening and even a bad one, especially a bad one, it's always document. It's always great to have that verbal conversations. I'm a talker. Obviously, I'm not much, but you have to sit down, you write those documentations, you lay the expectations out in email into a message to the tenant. So there's nothing to dispute. Most importantly, through your business, you want to show that you're professional. And that's why with Front Lobby, putting your tenants into that system and putting their lease there and their email address, they're getting those monthly rent reminders and letting them know that rent is due, so that you don't have to be that pestering landlord that some landlords do. Like, hey, it's the first of the month at 6 o'clock. I haven't received rent. Let the system do it for you. That way they can show that you're a professional landlord using a system that's reminding them. And hey, guess what? Tenants are paying early and on time because that nice, simple, non-threatening message is coming to them, letting them know that rent is now due. And you're also helping them continue to keep their bills on track and keeping to improve their credit just by giving them that simple tool that they can use, and you look professional at the same time.
Love it. Again, leveraging tools, service providers, resources. Josh, go.
Yeah, I think it's just about being open and honest when you're doing that, and just making sure that you document. Sometimes I feel silly because I'll talk to the tenant and then it will be like, I'm going to email you in 5 minutes to verify exactly what we just said. And so sometimes it feels a little silly to be doing the exact same thing again, but it is really about making sure you have written evidence of that, because it is very key. Again, thank God nothing's happened so far, but you always want to just make sure. Again, this is about protecting yourself down the line.
It is all about protection, guys. You definitely need to keep your record straight. Hart, you're up.
So really simply, just have a Google Drive or some sort of drive system from the point of purchasing the property and getting your mortgage docs together. You're going to need those again for your second purchase and your third purchase. Photos and videos, your leases, your work orders, your receipts, like just get in the habit of putting everything there. Even if it's slightly unorganized, dump it in there and go in once a month and organize it. But just have it there and get in the habit of dumping everything in.
Love it. As painful as it is, guys, it's going to be more painful when you have to go searching for piles and piles and piles of paperwork, and then you can't find it. Corey, take us home. Record keeping.
Man, when it comes to record keeping, I guess like people get into real estate and they don't think that this is going to spit off a lot of receipts and statements and all that sort of stuff. Get all your stuff on auto pay, bills, and get them paperless so you can just pull them. And again, this isn't something that you need to do as well. Like this is something that you can easily put a person in the driver's seat to do those things for you. Digitize it, make it easy so you can do it from your phone. This literally should be your best tool out there, is what you can do from your phone these days, right? So. And get yourself a bookkeeper. It should be one of your first hires as you're growing. I wish I would have got mine earlier, but I struggled for like 5 years trying to do all this myself. And I'm like, I didn't go to school for bookkeeping. I went to school for business. So yeah, hire those people early on. Because like Danielle said, if you think that you need it, you're already too late. Pick a system, pick a person that you can grow with over time, which is a lot of people here on the screen tonight.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Well, we're out of time. And so I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for everybody jumping on this and hung in with us. Everybody held strong. So I want to say thank you. Appreciate your time. Hope this was valuable to you guys. Jump into the WhatsApp chat. Let us know your thoughts on tonight's webinar. Give everybody else who's in the chat FOMO who didn't jump into the webinar, and let them know what they missed out on. I want to say there was somebody also who threw out a question whether or not the recording, we would be sharing the recording. We will be sharing the recording. All of the links that you saw to the WhatsApp chat and everything else will be sent to you in an email. So if you missed it, part of it, it'll all be sent to you in an email. And until next time, everybody, I want everyone to give us a big whoop, whoop. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. Till next time. Woo! Thank you. Bye for now.